Okay, welcome. This is the meeting of the Groton Board of Education being held on Monday, April 20th, 2026. It's a committee of the whole meeting being held in central office. It is approximately 6:03 p.m. And in attendance in person tonight, we have Adrian Johnson, Jen White, myself, Bev Washington. We also have Dr. Anne-Marie Mancini and the Superintendent of Schools, Susan Austin. Online, we have Dr. Andrea Ackerman, we have Ian Thomas, and Jay Whitlaw. So we have enough to start the meeting. A couple of board members will be late, so they will be joining us when they get here. The first item on the agenda is to review the March 16, 2026 meeting minutes. It's attachment 1 in your packet. Any comments, corrections? No? All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 16, 2026?
You gotta make a motion, Deb.
Oh, okay. They have a motion to
I'll
approve.
make the
Thank you.
motion. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Adrian. Do I have a second? See what a week off will do to you?
No, I know.
That's my excuse.
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Online, Dr. Ackerman has her hand up, Jay has his hand up, and Ian. All right, so it passes 6-0 to 0. Thank you. All right, next we're going to have a nice presentation by our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Anne-Marie Mancini. She will be talking about illustrative math, K-8, and it's attachment number 2 in your packet. Math is something that we really want to work on in our district, and something we really need to improve those test scores. So with the help of Dr. Mancini, this should come to light.
Thank you. I am really excited about this presentation. I'm also really excited to work on math. It's been something that I've been working on since I walked in the door. I feel like we're making a lot of progress in math. And I want to recognize on our call today, or on our online meeting, we have Daisy Rao. She's one of our elementary math specialists, and she may contribute some talking points as I do my presentation. But thank you, Daisy, for being online today. Caitlin, are you going to be presenting, or am I going to show the presentation?
Can you do it?
I can. I'm not. I have not signed in, so my apologies. Take a second to do that.
I have asked, I'm sorry, Anne-Marie, I didn't ask you. I've asked the chairs of the committee if they have presentations, if they can do their own presentation. And of course, you'll need to help Mitch with that. You would have to help me too, so.
Officially in the meeting. And
Caitlin, do we have everybody able to share?
So tonight, as you mentioned, I'm going to be presenting on what we've been doing in math. We have been working on piloting a resource called Illustrative Math. I first presented on this back in November, and I wanted to provide you today with an update. Hopefully, after today, we can look at moving forward. I believe it would be next week, in which my hope would be that we can move forward with taking a vote to adopt. But we'll see at the end of this presentation. So this work aligns with our strategic plan, of course, specifically pillar number 1, which is accelerate academic achievement, which Chairman Washington, you just mentioned. Our work in math is really important. We want to make sure that not only are we improving our students' performance in mathematics through their test scores, but we're really just improving their knowledge and their skills. Obviously, that's what's important to us. We want our students to be competent readers. We obviously want them to be competent problem solvers, and really be able to show their abilities in these areas. Of course, we want them to be very good at science, social studies, all of the content areas. Now, in this case, I want to review the agenda with you. Today, I'm going to quickly review with you the vision and approach to math instruction. This is something that I developed in cooperation with our math specialists, our math department supervisor at the secondary level, and our math teachers at the secondary level had some input as well. I'm going to just quickly go over the math, the illustrative math resource. This is some information that I reviewed with you back in November, but I wanted to take an opportunity just to kind of review some of the highlights of the resource. Then I wanted to talk to you about give you an update on the pilot since November, what's been happening. And then, of course, review the reasons that we've developed for transitioning to the illustrative math resource. And then, of course, take any question and answers that you have. So the first thing I want to do, and you've seen this before, is just kind of review with you our vision and approach to math instruction. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, this was something that was developed by our math teachers collaboratively together. And I'm really proud of this because this is not something that Susan or I, that we developed. This was something that was a shared, a shared task by our teachers. They've identified these 5, these 5 areas that they believe are really important in our math program. Number 1, that it has to be aligned to standards. That's obviously really key. If your math program is not aligned to standards, then your students are not doing grade level work. That will come up later in our presentation. Number 2, that our work with our students, it promotes active learning. You don't want students to be passive learners in the classroom. Then if they're going to be passive learners, they probably will not learn the material. I can tell you that in my past, when I was in classes where the teacher wasn't actively engaging me, I may not have learned the material as well as in other classrooms. You want to, of course, encourage real-world connections. I think, again, that's what really helps the material stay in the brains of our students and help them apply it. You want them, of course, to emphasize conceptual understanding. And then finally, we want to build coherence. I think that's something that I've been working on since I started here in the district. And we want to make those connections, K through 5, 6 through 8, and then eventually into our high school area. And so you'll see these 5 parts of our vision and our approach are going to keep coming up in this presentation. So here are some key design principles that I want to talk about illustrative math. And you did see these back in November. I talked about them, but I thought it was really important to revisit them. The first is that, as a part of illustrative math, it really emphasizes student-led exploration. And going back to the slide before, obviously that's something that was part of our one of our key features that we wanted, is that it would actively engage our students. So the students have the opportunity through illustrative math to see what they can figure out for themselves before having the concept explained to them. It emphasizes real-world context. Again, another one of our key design key features that we wanted as a group. And then cohesive progressions, making sure that the learning is built from one grade level to the next, and one area to the next. So things are built upon from K5, 6, 8, and then eventually on to 9, 12. And one of the things I really like about illustrative math is that their mantra is that students don't just learn how to do math, They learn how to understand, use, and enjoy math. I think that's so important. I know for me, I think it's not a secret that I was an English and social studies teacher, and I always wish that I learned a little bit more. I definitely learned the rote aspects of mathematics, having times tables I could do, like that, and but never really learned to enjoy mathematics. It wasn't something that was part of my studies, but I think if I learned under this program, I would have enjoyed math much more.
I think that's a common theme amongst the students. They don't enjoy math, a lot of them.
Yeah.
If you ask them about, I bet you more than 50% of the students don't enjoy math.
I don't know if it's still that way.
Yeah, I think it's changing.
I think it's shifted in my career.
It's changing for sure. So let's talk a little bit about what a typical lesson structure looks like. So in illustrative math, there's always an invitation to learning, kind of what we would call in the past, setting the expectations for the day, or introducing the objective or the learning target. There's a warm-up, or in the past sometimes that's been called the initiation, but that's what launches the lessons. There are 1 to 3 instructional activities, and that really depends on what the lesson is. So, really depends on what they're working on. And during that time, that's where, students are introduced to new concepts or language. Maybe their new representations are introduced during that time. They're learning an academic vocabulary. Then there's a lesson synthesis, which guides students through the big picture understanding, as a large group understanding or discussion, response to a prompt or adding to a new concept. Here's where students are making connections to what they already know. And then there's a cool down, and that's where teachers are able to check for student understanding. I think that's a really obviously an important piece. One of the things I think that all teachers, and I'm not just saying specific to here, when we walk through classrooms, I think it's really important that teachers are always checking for understanding, and this is actually built in. So teachers don't have to think of ways to do that. It's actually built into the lesson. So I want to transition now to talk about our pilot of the illustrative math resource. We started out this year with all of our K-8 schools implementing. I gave them the option. You can implement 1 or 2 units depending upon what you want. Some teachers decided they wanted to do 1 because especially at the K-5 level, they had just implemented a new literacy resource, so they were like, 1 is enough. They were going in year 2. And some people said, hey, we want to go ahead and do 2. Some people liked it so much they decided even to do 3. They said that was okay. They got very excited. And they started this process in August of 2025. To support our teachers, we did a number of things. Number 1 is that we had our elementary math specialists, or our, in the case of the secondary level, had our secondary math supervisor select the units in which they could pilot. And we did that obviously very intentionally. We wanted to make sure that the units made sense. There wasn't anything out of order, so that, because illustrative math very specifically has progressions, and we didn't want the kids to almost not be set up for success, And then for resources, we made sure that their teachers had summer work hours in which that we could incorporate the unit work right into the existing curriculum, so that all of the information was right there. We downloaded materials so that everything that they needed was right into the existing curriculum. Then we provided training. We hired a certified IM instructor. Now, through illustrative math, if you are to adopt, there are 3 certified vendors or approved vendors that illustrative math has you work with, and they also want you to make sure that your teachers are trained by these approved instructors. And so we went ahead and we contracted with a certified instructor who has been working with our teachers, at first focusing on the mathematical practices. We also had an individual come in and model lessons in our classrooms, and our middle school teachers went and visited a school and obviously went to their classrooms and saw a school that has already successfully implemented illustrative math. So our teachers were exposed to these teaching practices and the resource in a variety of different ways. And then we've collected feedback through surveys. So I want to talk now about the four.
Hey, can you talk about the feedback from the survey?
Yeah, so I didn't do a second set of surveys, but if you recall, in November, I shared with you the variety of feedback that we collected. So I collected surveys from our leaders, our assistant principals, principals, and our department supervisors, or really it's one department supervisor, as well as our elementary math specialists. I put them under the leader category just because they're working with our teachers in a kind of semi-leader capacity. The second survey went out to our K-5 teachers, and then the third survey went out to our 6-8 teachers. I would say that, I think all the surveys had about 10 questions, maybe it was 11, but it was somewhere around that. And it was a variety of short answer and multiple choice. By and large, the leader survey was very, very favorable. I think it was like over 80 to 90% in favor of adoption. The elementary survey was, again, very, very high. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was, I'd say, at this point, there was only one grade level that had some reservations. It was kindergarten. They thought that maybe the resource was going too slow at first, and we looked into that, and one of the reasons when we asked about it was that, of course, a lot of some districts have a preschool program, some do not. And so the resource kind of accounts for that in starting out slowly, because many of our students go to preschool, they're coming in with stronger skills, and so it was starting out a little slow, and actually our certified trainer kind of taught us how to adjust for that. Interestingly, I went to a school recently, specifically Northeast Academy, and they talked about, whoa, all of a sudden things sped up really quickly. And so now they're starting to see that things are moving along. So I think that we'll be able to, should we decide to adopt, I think that our teachers will be able to adjust accordingly. And I did ask the trainer, if she's to do the training next year for our teachers, to pay some specific attention to kindergarten and how we might adjust the pacing a little bit. But otherwise, K through 5 has been really, really favorable in terms of that. And then 6 through 8, our 6th grade has been very favorable in terms of the transition and the pilot. 7th and 8th have had, to be honest with you, they've had some reservations, but I can talk about that more extensively as the presentation continues. So I want to talk a little bit now about the 4 reasons that I've identified to transition to elective math, and then I'll talk about them more extensively as I go along. But this is just a general overview. Number 1, it supports improved student outcomes, which I know, Chairman Washington, you mentioned very, very important to you, as I'm sure the rest of this board. Number 2, it addresses the needs for high-quality instructional materials. That's what HQIM stands for. That's a very educational acronym. Number 3, it supports the shift in our vision and instructional approach, which I mentioned. I believe that was one of the first slides I addressed. And then number 4, it establishes program coherence. So let me talk about each one of these in depth. So the first reason is that it supports improved student outcomes. And I don't think I need to let anyone know that after the pandemic, I think students nationwide really struggled, specifically in mathematics. You can see here that, first of all, I believe the statistic is that 1 in every 3 schools have failed to recover from their pre-pandemic outcomes. So I don't actually have here where we were in 2019, because 2020 there was no testing. And 2021, there was that weird hybrid year where some kids were testing from home. We don't even know what they were doing when they were home testing. Some kids were testing in front of us. So the State Department of Ed just generally discounts those results. But you can see here that over time, our students generally, with the exception of 7th grade, tend to decrease in their performance. So if you follow the highlights, in 2022, our grade 3 students were performing at 48% at or above goal. And then in 2023, when they were in 4th grade, they were at 52%. They dipped down a little bit in 5th grade, down to 49%, but generally they're in that same range. Then when they get to 6th grade, and that is a big transition year, but they go down, they decline all the way to 34%. That's significant. Generally we do see a decrease in ELA and math when students transition to 6th grade, but that is a significant decline. You'll see in the 7th grade, as I said, There was a little bounce back. We have 46% to 45. Again, there's that big decline to 31% when the students hit 6th grade, and then our 7th grade teachers last year were able to bring those students back up, made a significant increase, good for them. And then you can see our students, our 5th grade students, go from 39 to 22, up to 34 to 27. And that's really like, when you see yo-yos like that, that's not supposed to be. We really should be able to be, number one, pretty stable or seeing increases. We shouldn't be seeing this up and down. That really kind of indicates to me that our curriculum is not very, I would say, stable, or is not something that is consistent in terms of what we're teaching.
American history.
Yeah.
Are these the same group of students from year to year?
Yeah, so
Well,
what I would say is what we call a rough cohort. So it's not like a matched cohort would be the exact same students every year, but it's a rough cohort, so approximately the same students. There are some students, of course, that are going to leave and be in that group, and some that are coming in, but it's generally the same group of kids.
And in this district, I would say we probably have a little more shifting year to year, but it is a rough
It's
course.
the same cohort,
Yeah.
core group of kids, I would say.
Now, when you look at the, can I ask that question?
Sure, of course.
When you look at the results, is there something specific, like in grade 6? That's where they really went down.
Yeah.
More than that. Was there something specific in that grade that
No.
for math that was harder?
Every year, it seems like there's different things that are that cause the results to be not what we would want, and that's partially because every year, while there are certain standards, of course, that are assessed every year. I would say that it's hard to determine because there are certain things that are emphasized more than others. It's really hard to say that like this one skill is the thing that's really killing them.
I think, though, the problem solving is what we really need to be practicing and doing on a daily basis. And that really is something over time I've seen historically that has we have not performed as well in the country. And that's why this problem solving approach is going to be really imperative as we go forward.
What math are they doing in grade 6? Do you know?
Oh boy, you're hit me out in the area that's a
Ratios,
little bit out of my
percent,
context.
proportions,
Yeah, ratios, percent.
all those life skills, our middle school mathematics, like everything we do daily in our budgeting process, in our
They do
measuring
some
process.
Geometry. They do-
Geometry, yeah.
So there's a variety of different things that they're hitting on. So, this first reason really leads me into the second reason, and I think that these things are closely linked. And this is the idea that we need high-quality instructional materials. There's a strong link between having these high-quality instructional materials and positive learning outcomes. There's been several studies that find that the choice of your math resource has had a significant effect on test scores. And when teachers don't have these high-quality materials, the research indicates that they do the following things. Number one, they're forced to spend time looking for materials online or maybe in other resources, or they spend time creating their own materials. But then what does that mean? The result for that is that there's no alignment of standards, there's no quality control, and there's no analysis of the effectiveness of the content that's being pulled together for the students. So say, for example, Mrs. Austin and I, Superintendent Austin and I, both teach the 6th grade. I might be pulling together, because we don't have high-quality materials, I might be pulling together one set of materials from resources online, or maybe my own textbooks that I have at home for my students. She may be pulling together other materials. We're not talking to one another because we're doing all this at home or maybe during our planning period. And then our students have fundamentally different, basically, instruction in our classrooms. And then add to it maybe then a third person who's doing then something else. So we owe it to our teachers to make sure that they have quality materials that they're working from.
Is there a digital component to this?
There is a digital component to this.
You're going to get to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I want to talk a little bit about these materials. So the resource that I am recommending has been implemented. It's first of all, it is the state model curriculum is based on illustrative math, so it's not that I've kind of pulled this out of left field. But I also want to talk about some big districts that have been using this resource. Philadelphia Public Schools implemented recently. They've had their highest test scores in 9 years. Los Angeles Public Schools have also recently implemented. They've exceeded pre-pandemic math performance. And Washington, D.C. has also been identified as an improved math achievement and as a result of implementing. Now, locally, I can tell you that Meriden Public Schools has also seen an increase as a result of implementing. East Hartford Public Schools has seen an increase, and I believe it's region 14, but they've been region 17. I have to check my notes. Also has seen an increase as a result of implementation. We were also given a recommendation by the State Department of Education math consultant to consult with, I believe it was Danbury Public Schools, because they also had a significant increase as a result of implementing illustrative math. So a lot of districts, not only nationwide, but locally here in Connecticut, have implemented this program and have seen positive results as a result of implementing this program.
How long?
It's going to be a variety. You can see here from these articles, some of these are more recent implementation in the last 2 to 3 years. I can tell you when I was with East Hartford Public Schools, we started implementation. We did middle school first because there wasn't an elementary school program. So we did middle school and then started with elementary because they were actually, IM was doing an elementary pilot, and then we also went up into the high school at the same time. But I want to say we started that around 2018, but saw a 12% increase in our Smarter Balance scores over time in that.
Right, in 3 years? Because I don't want to think that next year.
No, I want to say, the first year.
Well, then you had the pandemic.
Yeah, well, the first year we took a Smarter Balance, which was 2014 through, I'm probably only counting from the last year that I was there, so 2023. But we were one of very few districts that saw increases in math and ELA scores and Smarter Balance every year, and then we were also one of, I think, only a very small handful of districts identified by the State Department of Education for not seeing any loss during the pandemic in both. I think the loss in ELA was 0.01% in ELA or 0.2% in ELA. It was less than a percentage point, and no loss in mathematics.
Jen has a question. You don't mind, do you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, this is great stuff. So I know we're talking about the schools that recently implemented and their scores are, but the top tier, not top tier, but the schools that we normally see that is recognized in the state, do they already have it in place, and have they had it in place? So I'm going to say the Avons, Simsbury's, West Hartford, and then the ones down in the western part of Connecticut, do they already have it in place? And so they've always been ahead of the scale, and now all of the, I guess the large scale cities or medium-sized cities are now coming into play and catching up.
Yeah, I can't speak with confidence about every single district, obviously.
Yeah,
because,
of course.
There are a number of districts. I can tell you that in my conversations with the state consultant for math, her name is Jenna Gillette, talked with her quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Most districts are either using one of two programs, illustrative math or iReady math.
Mm-hmm.
We use iReady for our assessments and our intervention program, and I'm proposing that we use illustrative math for our Tier 1 program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just trying
If you want to know about what does Avon use or what does Simsbury use, I can look into that. I just haven't.
I'm just curious to see if, because they've always had the resource that they were, forefront. You know what I mean? And their students have been benefiting for, a couple of years, and then the rest of the districts are. So, it's just curiosity. So
Yeah, don't
if you
forget,
happen,
it is a newer resource. Again, when we implemented it in East Hartford, and again, I can't remember the exact year, but we were one of the initial districts that were implementing, and then definitely as a part of, and I wouldn't say we were the first, but one of the, I would say we were at the forefront. And then with the pilot for K-5, I know, anytime you're a pilot for the actual company, and I'm sure you definitely
you know you're in the
Yeah.
forefront. I always hear good things about East Hartford. My friends' kids, like went through there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And then I want to talk about, again, this is related to this need for high-quality instructional materials. So these two boxes here, this represents the two resources that we currently use primarily in our K-5. So on the left shows you what we are using in K-5. It's called Investigations. And this was released in 2017. There was also a 2015 version. I'm not sure, Superintendent Austin can probably give you the history on when we adopted this. But the 2017 version, I believe, is the version that we currently are using. And as you can see here, this is by Ed Reports. And Ed Reports is an independent platform in which all of the textbook companies basically submit, and then they're rated by this company, and in terms of the quality of the materials. And you can see Investigations 2017 version was rated according to its kind of like they call it gateways, but it's essentially their different their three rating categories or expectations. Gateway number 1 is based on the three. I would say the three shifts in the Common Core standards for math. The first one is focus, in terms of does this resource allow students to I would say focus on particular standards so that they can really build their knowledge. Gateway number 2 is also based on the shifts in the Common Core, and that's coherence. Does it allow you, or the students and the teachers to build coherence from one grade level to the next? And then Gateway 3 is in terms of usability, and then that means how is it in terms of how usable is it for teachers? And you can see, I don't know why they rated it as not eligible, but I don't think that's a good score. So that's how it is rated in those three areas by Ed Reports. Again, this is the main platform that basically all school districts use as a resource to say, okay, when we're looking at a new resource, how has it been scored by this kind of independent organization? And then on the right side is connected math. That's what we use in grades 6 through 8. And you can see the red area here that's the lowest score that you can get. It did not meet expectation. The green, it did actually meet expectation in terms of coherence, and it only partially meets in terms of usability for our teachers. So, either way, I see the two resources that we're currently using in K-5 and 6-8, not great scores.
And how long have we been using this?
Probably since 2014-15. So they were National Science Foundation programs that were highly recognized through the National Science Foundation. But they just have gotten old, so I don't think they've kept up. Even though the last versions were 2017 and 15.
Either way, it's like
So-
9 and 11 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
They
So
gotta kinda
it
update.
was time that we
Yeah.
needed to do something like this. I mean, I think in the first DODEA grant, we were working on mathematics in probably 15, 16, and those were highly acclaimed at the time. But
You said they were vetted by the National Science?
National Science Foundation, they were grant-oriented by professors from Brown University and several other universities, Holyoke.
But not
so-
math people, these were science people that were...
No, they were math.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
they were math professors working on it and teachers working on it, and yeah. So, but it's time that we need to upgrade.
So I'm going to just lay out my cards, right? So I'm going to support you even before we end.
Oh,
So
thank
this is a question, because you know I always
Sure.
ask.
Of course.
Has there been version release for like upgrades since 2017 and 2015? And if there were, are those at least current? Because I think that would be the better, like when you're like, when it comes to the rest of the people, to be like, yeah, even if we did go with the upgrades, it's still not meeting it because they're still, so.
Based on what I found, these versions, 2017 and 2015, are the most current versions.
Yes.
Really? So they haven't
They just,
invested?
they haven't invested in upgrading.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
Science Foundation grants have kind of gone away, so, they didn't continue the
Yeah, so that's
research.
perfect, like a lead-in, like they haven't invested. So it would be different if like Groton didn't invest because we didn't fund it.
We didn't have the funding. or something,
Exactly.
yes.
So they didn't invest, so that's reason hands down.
Yeah.
So we're not going to use these two anymore?
That's my goal, is to convince you that.
That's in our budget.
And she's doing a pretty good job.
You can see here that this is versus the illustrative math, again, which was also rated by Ed Reports. Their version 2.0, which is for students in K-8, meets all three gateways, all three green lights there. And it was created by the co-founder of illustrative math, was created by the lead writer of the Common Core State Standards. So I think, this should bring you back to what I showed you about our student outcomes. When you have materials that are not aligned to the Common Core, well, of course, our students are not going to perform well because they weren't given content that was aligned to the standards that they're supposed to be taught. That's not anyone's fault. That's not our teacher's fault. That's not our students' fault. It's the fault of the materials that haven't kept up to date. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm pointing fingers at anyone, especially our teachers who work really hard to prepare our students. That's not the case here.
Yeah, no,
What's the
I
difference-
never got that from your presentation.
What's the difference between Review Tool 2.0 and the Review Tool 1.0?
Yeah, it's that Ed Reports has updated the way that they rate. They might score it a little bit differently. If you want all of the way that the changes in the way that they rate, I can do that. I think it's minor changes in terms of we looked at gateway number 1 and we for focus we looked at these items instead of these items. It's really, I think, minor, but I'm happy to give you the
I think
information.
it's basically based on the date. If you see the version 1.0, it was back in 2017 and 2015, where 2.0 is 2025. So it's
The
much
review
more
tool is actually what Ed Reports uses to actually
Right.
score it.
Right.
Yeah.
current. And that was more current.
Yeah. So reason number 3 is that I believe that illustrative math supports our shift in our instructional approach. Because of course it supports this problem-based learning, as Susan just spoke about. It supports an asset-based instructional routines. For example, what do you notice? Ask the students all the time, what do you notice and wonder? Which, by the way, is also incorporated into our Wit and Wisdom program, so our students will be really familiar with that. To make sure that our students, every student has an entry point into the lesson. It has intentional design to incorporate mathematical discourse. I am a big believer that learning is a social process, and students need to talk to one another. And this program, one of the things I really like about it is that it really incorporates that aspect of having students talk to one another. Again, similar to Wit and Wisdom, where the students are engaged in Socratic seminars with one another.
Even in first grade.
Yes, it ensures that students have coherent learning progressions, that they're building on concepts from one grade level to the next, and that also it builds agency and authority, that students are doers of mathematics. One thing that I always say to Susan that I look for when we're going into classroom is who's doing the work, and in this case, our students are doing the work. So the last reason I have here is that this allows us to establish program coherence. I talked to you about this at the start of the presentation. Rather than having students do one or work from one program in K-5, the next program in 6-8, and then a variety of different resources depending upon the math that they take at the high school level. If they're in the IB program, or they are learning AP, or they're just in, maybe ninth grade algebra, there's a variety of resources that our teachers are using at the high school level. This new program puts them all under the same umbrella in K through 8, with the potential of expanding into our high school levels and for algebra, geometry, and even algebra 2. So that is the end of my presentation. This hopefully will lead us to a roadmap to success. Do you have additional questions?
Adrian?
Yeah. So do we have ample time? I know the schedule in the elementary school, we've gone over that the teachers just don't have enough time to get through all the curriculums. How long do we have for the curriculum now, whatever we're teaching now in elementary? And is this time, does this take longer, or is it similar? Or?
I'm glad that you asked that question. Depending upon the school, I believe that they schedule anywhere between 45 to 60 minutes for mathematics. And next year they will, all of our schools are trying to, or the elementary level you are asking specifically, they're all trying to extend to at least 60 minutes. And, they're working collaboratively as a group. Our K-5 principals are really good about that, about, kind of getting together and saying, hey, I noticed that you've been able to increase to 60 minutes in math. Where did you get that time? Can you help me? I'd love for it to extend to 60 minutes and get that extra time. I don't know if they'll all be able to do that, but they are looking at that to see, can they get extra time for mathematics? It doesn't require a specific number of minutes. They'll, they ideally, they'll take as many minutes as they can get. But I think the ideal time for math is, anywhere 60 minutes and up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they're not strict on, because I think like the reading program, it's time, right? They want, I forget exactly, but it's almost 2 hours,
But
right?
it
It's
does,
between
it
an
does
hour and 2
incorporate
hours.
a lot of social studies and science topics too. So we are getting a big bang for our buck because they're teaching reading.
Oh, yeah.
But we're teaching reading across the curriculum too. So we've integrated that, and the topics that they've chosen in Wisdom really do match up with what we are teaching in science and social studies at most grade levels. So.
Yeah, so there's
And
benefit. in that.
I want to come back to something that Bevan asked me earlier in the spirit of transparency. Bev, you asked about the surveys, and I talked to you about our concerns from our 7th and 8th grade teachers. One of the concerns that they have is the amount of time, because we're going to talk next. The next item on the agenda is the schedule, and as you know, the middle school students only meet with their teachers every other day. And so that is a concern that they have, is that currently the schedule only allows them to see students every other day for approximately, I believe it's 90 minutes or 80-something minutes. And, our math teachers believe that in order for our students to be successful, they would need to see the students every day. I would argue that regardless of the program, our students need to see our math teachers every day. That would help them to be successful. This is something, though, that I anticipate, and I've been working with our math trainer and saying, okay, if we have to wait a year before we're able to implement a new schedule, can you work with our teachers? How can we kind of pace out the curriculum for the middle school level to support them, to make sure that our students are as successful as they can be as we make this transition?
And she's probably used to many other middle schools that are block scheduled, because it's kind of one of those things in middle school, high school, secondary, that it's kind of a common practice. So
Yeah.
I'm sure she can do it.
But I wanted to make sure that I, was transparent about that. Is one of their main concerns. And it's also a very challenging curriculum. It is not something that is not rigorous. This is a very rigorous curriculum, but I come from the philosophy or the background that when you expect more of students, you get more in return. There, when you can't,
I agree.
So this will change the way that our teachers work with our students and provide instruction. But I think eventually that, they're going to struggle at first. But as our students come in with stronger skills from the elementary level, they are going to have a stronger foundation, and they will rise to the occasion. And I believe our middle school students will as well. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they will get there. I'm definitely come from the assets background rather than a deficit one, and I have confidence our teachers will do a good job with this.
So the middle, go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, actually, why don't you, I'll come back if I, because I'm kind of thinking your question's going to be in my same thinking.
So having said that, the middle school schedule is
Yeah.
gonna like put us, we won't see the growth that we wanna see in math because of the middle school schedule?
I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that for a fact. I think that's a concern of our middle school teachers, and I think I understand that concern. I think that, if you were to ask me, I think that our teachers need to see the kids every day.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that. But can I say because of X, Y happens? I'm sure there are a lot of reasons why, our students are not doing great right now. I'd like to think that once we provide them with materials that are aligned to the Common Core, that's going to immediately result in some improvement. Right now, their materials are just not aligned. So you're starting off with a deficit.
Right. But this was meant to teach, this program, can I call it a program?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This program was meant to be taught every day, not every other day.
It actually has a, when you provide it to our teachers, there's a version, like a pacing chart for every day, and there's also a pacing chart if you teach students every other day.
Oh, okay.
It's just more aggressive, I guess you would say, if you have kids every other day.
Mm.
Yeah, so now I'll follow off that. I'm guessing that they're worried that that you have a really hard time keeping a middle schooler's attention for 85 minutes, right?
I
So that
think-
you're going to get 85 minutes of quality instruction.
I've heard that in every content area, not just math.
Yeah, so that's so I'm guessing that's part of the concern is just that. I mean, we can get, the teachers may say, and I'm just going to say, we can get about 40 minutes of effective instruction and then kids work on their own and we kind of work with them more one-on-one or something. Is that how it's happening kind of now? That
No, it really,
I shouldn't say effective instruction, but I think a kid can't sit there in front of a lecture for 90
it really
minutes.
varies, but you're talking about something that, I'm going to talk about next when we talk about school scheduling for the middle school and why we've kind of put together that committee. The concern from our middle school teachers was that they believe that that middle school schedule, the way that it's implemented now with the 85 to 90 minutes, it's not developmentally appropriate for the middle school brain, right, or the middle school learner. But I would say that how teachers go about providing instruction in the block really varies, probably day to day, and then also by teacher. I taught in the block, not middle school students, I taught high school students in the block. And depending upon what I was teaching, one day it's going to look one way, and the next day it was going to look another way. It really depended on what I was doing. I would imagine that our teachers, it's probably similar for them. I can't say that every day was probably structured the same way.
And teaching and learning isn't like what we remember. It's not where the teachers just, they're sitting and getting and the teacher is just delivering. It really is mixed up. You see sometimes kids doing the building thinking classrooms and they're in small group and they're debating a math problem and figuring it out. It might look like that for part of the session. It might look like small think tanks in groups. It might be the teacher giving a mini lesson to small groups or to the whole group. So they mix it up so it doesn't
You
seem
have to.
the same.
Whenever you're
You have
teaching
to.
in a block, the general guideline is that students should have almost like 3 different transitions. You're doing one thing, then you transition to something else, and then something else, because otherwise you will lose them.
And sometimes it's in some independent work too, kind of like how we taught in college, when you teach college students and you have them for a whole day,
Yeah.
weeks at a time.
All right. Yeah, I just remember my kids were telling me they did all their. One of the things I personally had a problem with is that there was no homework in middle school, and my kids
Oh.
that were in the new middle school said it was because they did all their homework in class. So so they had kind of transitioned away, and that was early on in the middle school. So things may have changed since then.
It's interesting you say that because when my daughter was in middle school, there was no homework in middle school in some of her classes anyway. I can't remember this all. And they said, but she went to West Side, and they said, because the kids don't do homework, so we don't give homework. Homework must be a problem in middle school.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's lots of reasons. I don't remember doing a lot of homework in middle school.
Or combined school.
I always got mine to do homework. They'd come for breakfast club if they didn't know how to do the problems. And then
I see that Ian has a question.
I'll just ask my last one and then I'll let you go. I'm wondering how the program works for students. So we've obviously got a lot of students that are below or at grade level, but then there's also a lot of students that excel and may currently end up in, do they do pre-algebra or is it just Algebra 1? So we have kids in 7th grade and 8th grade doing Algebra 1, I believe. So how does it work if you're in this program and you end up missing this program 7th and 8th grade year because you hopped into Algebra 1? Are you missing some fundamental core skills?
I would say that this includes pre-algebra and algebraic concepts.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm just saying that, but as the students that are accelerated are going to end up out of this program, because I don't believe we're going to be using the algebra program. So are they going to miss some core content because they didn't do the 8th grade year for this program? I guess if I could say it that way.
Currently what we're doing is we're making sure that the 8th grade standards are in the algebra program so that they have those additionally that they're working on beyond algebra. That's why it's called an honors course. Because they have to meet the need. They have to have the 8th grade standards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that those kids probably pick things up easily in math anyway, and they probably are going to catch them. I'm just, you know what I'm trying to say is I know in...
You don't want them missing any
If we were to
content.
talk to, if Andrea were to comment on writing, she would say you
Yeah.
need to focus on this skill.
Of course.
And I'm just asking with math, are we missing any skills that are kind of core to it?
I can't speak to that with in depth because I don't have both of those documents in front of me in terms of 7th grade and the 8th grade and then what happens in algebra. But, I'm pretty confident that our department head, Caitlin Crowley, would be able to make sure that the kids aren't going to be missing, things. And we could provide our teachers with all of those resources so that they are able to
Make sure.
But if you want more, a detailed answer on that, I can ask Caitlin to prepare something and provide that for you. We'll make sure that there's not a deficit in their knowledge.
Yeah, I wouldn't need a detailed answer, just something that says, yeah, we know about that,
Yeah.
and we're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
We're going to work it out.
Yeah. There will be a plan
that's
for that.
Yeah. And then one more quick one, sorry. Does this have to go through the curriculum process?
It went through the curriculum committee already, and I believe I've been following all the steps of the process. So the
All right.
last step is here, and then a vote, I believe, next week.
All right.
You said you were going to talk about the digital component?
So yes,
And do we have the capacity, if there is one, do we have the capacity to support that?
yes. So should we decide to move forward with adoption, I asked for a quote or requested a quote from the vendor. We would have a digital capacity for K-5 for our teachers, but not for our students. I believe that, especially for our youngest learners, it's more important to, I think the print materials are sufficient. I actually asked around about that quite a bit from my colleagues in other districts. What do you think? Do the elementary school students need the digital aspect, materials as well? All of them said the same thing. K-5, maybe later on, after a few years in, if you find that your 4th and 5th grade teachers, want that to incorporate that, but especially with the first few years of implementation, the print materials are more than enough.
And they have iReady,
Yes.
too, as an assessment tool, but it's also an intervention tool.
Yeah.
So it really assesses where they're at and what they need. So they have that already.
And
So
I think
it'd be too much.
for the most part, we're really trying to dial back
Yeah.
having them on the
screen.
laptops and screens so much, especially at the elementary level. In grades 6 through 8, our teachers would have digital access and print access, and our students would have both as well.
And what about the data that we can receive from in this IM?
Yeah, so there are some assessments that we would be able to, receive some information. But most of it is really primarily a curriculum resource.
Okay.
we will be using it.
But it has been topic tests.
Yeah, of course, and
Yeah.
the unit assessments and formative assessments, quizzes and things like that. I know that Ian had a question.
And I just wanted, Sean Corcoran joined us about 6:40.
I caught it when he came in.
Okay, thank you. Ian, you have a
Thank
question? Ian, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Just, could you kind of discuss generally, like, the relationship between, like, tactile, manipulatives versus, like, digital? I mean, some of what is being described, it sounds like there's a lot of online computer stuff. I'm just curious to know, some research coming out recently indicating that, sometime that there may be some negative aspects, maybe losing some students to sort of digital disassociation, and whereas like a lot of students, some students are more reactive to more practical, tactile manipulatives, and pencil and paper type approaches. What's the relationship, like overall ratio speaking wise, between like how much of this is like all online immersive stuff versus like or on digital, on computer I should say, not online, but versus like practical and tactical.
I think Anne Marie said that there's no online for the students,
For
only for
K-5.
the teachers for K-5.
But there are resources, like you're saying, Ian, there are manipulative kits at each grade level that we're purchasing. It's actually in our budget. That's why we need to get, all the funds that we've asked for, because that's really an important ingredient. But there is no digital component that comes with IMK5 from what Anne-Marie said.
Yeah, the teachers will be able to access it if they want to show students something in particular. They can be, put something up on the Promethean board, but the students won't be accessing that. I agree with you, Ian, that there's a lot that students can access these days online, but that's something I think that we're trying to pull back on, and so we are purposely not moving forward with that for our elementary school students. I'm actually going to call here on Daisy Rao, who's one of our elementary math specialists. She can talk in depth and with confidence about the math manipulatives and other aspects of the program. And if that's okay, Chair, I'd like to have Daisy speak a little bit about that. Daisy, would you mind chiming in a little bit?
That'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Kit, I might need to promote her.
There you go. Hi, Daisy.
Yeah, hi. I'm really happy to tell you, Ian, that the math learning is almost entirely hands-on. We always begin a math concept working with it tactily. We come at it from many different ways. We'll look at an image, like a photograph of a garden, or a photograph of a stadium, or we'll look at scores from the Olympics, and we'll do a lot of discussion and conversations and really teach kids how to ask math questions. And then we try to represent what we're seeing in real life context through manipulatives, whether it's base 10 blocks, whether it's Rec and Recs, one of my favorites, or fraction tiles, to give kids that tactile relationship between the abstract concepts that they're trying to learn and what it really means and what it really represents.
Did I see,
That sounds
when you had
fantastic.
your curriculum committee meeting, they had a table, and they had blocks measuring the table? I saw that somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the blocks to measure the length of the table. And I was like, why don't they just get a tape measure?
Daisy, do you want to talk about that as well? So I'm so glad that Daisy's here. She's been, just like many of our math specialists, she's one of the champions of the illustrative math program. And I love, working with Daisy. She sends me articles and research studies about math every day and has really helped me improve my math knowledge. And I love reading all of the things that she sends me. And she's been a real champion of this program. And she definitely can answer your questions about, the blocks and all the other things. So, Daisy, you want to jump in here on that as well?
So it depends on that age group. Do you remember what grade that class was?
No, I don't.
Okay, So for some of the primary grade levels, it's really important that kids learn how to measure using non-standard units. So for them, it's actually really difficult to understand that an inch is an inch or a foot is a foot, but they can see that a block is a block. And so for like first grade, and I think parts of second grade, they're really understanding that that length is a thing. And I think that's why it's so important for them developmentally to do that. Once they move past that, toward the end, middle and the second grade, and then going into the older grades, then they can see that that length can be represented on a bar that has notches on it.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at a bar like that, or a ruler that has those little lines, now they're understanding that it's the space between those lines that represent a unit. And before, it may have been a paper clip or a block or a pencil or a crayon or a Cuisinart rod, but now they're old enough to understand what that means. And that's when we teach them things like inches and centimeters and meters and miles, and then we relate them to place value, and we relate them to multiplication and area and volume, and it just gets super fun from there.
Thank you.
So Daisy makes math fun for me, and that's I always appreciate it.
Can I ask a question about professional development?
Sure.
Is it like 1 year? Is it continuous?
Oh, no, our teachers have had some initial professional development this year, and already I've been actively, in anticipation of your approval, I've been actively working to set up professional development next year, not only with our certified IM trainer, just to make sure that our launch goes smoothly, but that we will continue to have support for our teachers, not in the classroom, on our big district professional development days, professional development for our people like Daisy, our elementary and our secondary, like our leaders, so that they can support our teachers in the classroom. The professional development component is really key, because you can buy the best resource in the world, but if the implementation does not go smoothly, it doesn't matter. Your resource can be great. It will fail if our teachers do not feel like they were supported in the implementation process. So I've been working very hard on that. Again, everything right now is pending the approval of the board moving forward, but I have been actively working on setting up that professional development for next year and making sure that our teachers have professional learning throughout the year and a variety of different types, so that it's not just big professional learning, but it's someone coming in their classroom and working together in small groups, and be a variety. We'll look at a variety of different ways.
Ian, do you have any more questions? I'm sorry.
How about Jane?
Ian, you have any more questions? Jay, you have any questions? Andrea, any questions?
No.
No, okay. I have another one. What about English learner students? How's this program for them?
Yeah, so as we talked about, like in one of the slides, this program is really designed to make sure there's an entry point for all of our learners. One of the things that I want to make sure that I am very intentional about is, and this has been, again, I'm actively working on the professional learning plan for the district next year, is making sure that our teachers of English learners and our bilingual teachers are incorporated into the training so that they know what this program is all about. And then also, obviously, we need to make sure that again, the program kind of accounts. There are some scaffolds that are built right into the program. I think all programs these days are aware that every district has students that have special needs, students that are English learners. So all of that is really accounted for. But I think part of the implementation it needs to make sure that our students, that our special education teachers and our and bilingual teachers are incorporated into that professional learning. So they're aware of what the program components are, what the expectations are, and they can support our Tier 1 teachers.
And anybody have another question? Okay. And what about parents? Are we going to do any kind of professional development for
Yeah,
parents?
I think we will. You know, all of our schools, K through 5, and we'll probably need to extend this into the middle school if we can, but all of our schools have math nights. We'll definitely need to do some additional education on that. One of the things that I've been working with Rebecca Baez on is, you know, making sure that our website has information on our curriculum, providing updates. You know, we've been providing updates to parents this year on our new literacy program. We would need to extend that into what we're doing with math, just so that everyone is aware in our community, all of our stakeholders, on, you know, there has been a shift. What does this shift mean? What does it look like? How is this going to impact your learner at home? But I bet you they have, you know, with this pilot, they've started to see it. Now we really just need to kind of do more informational work on that, because our parents, you know, they should be informed about what this is going to look like, and that would be important.
And what's the budget for this?
We do have the budget on this.
I think between the ELA, K-8,
Yes.
and then the math K-8, we were looking at $300,000.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, on Sunday, you know, I was at the National School Board Conference.
Oh, yeah.
And on Sunday morning, they had a workshop on betting math programs.
Oh, no kidding.
And you covered a lot of stuff.
Oh,
You
good.
covered quality, coherence,
All right, good.
vigor, usability,
All right.
and focus.
Okay,
So,
good.
She needs to present
She's right on.
All right. Did I miss anything?
No,
Oh,
no,
good.
those
All
are
right.
their guidance. Quality.
All right,
She
good.
needs to present next year,
So
Beth.
that's good.
That's good.
That's good.
Thank you.
Well, again, I want to make sure that I give credit where credit is due. People like Daisy and other members of our team, Mark Master Joseph also helped contribute. I did a draft of this presentation and I sent it out to the team members and said, okay guys, am I on track here? Is there anything that I'm missing? And they certainly gave me great feedback as well.
Okay, well, thank you to all the team members. I take a consensus about moving this forward to the regular board meeting next Monday. How do you feel, Adrian?
Oh.
Good?
I already said I was going to support it.
Okay. Jay, I'm taking a consensus about moving this forward to the regular board meeting on Monday, April 27th.
I would support that.
Okay. Dr. A?
Yes.
Ian?
Yep, I'm good with it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Ian, did you have any more questions?
No, everything was explained very well, and I have full confidence that it sounds like it's a great, well-designed program,
Okay.
and being well executed in its pilot. So I appreciate participation and support.
Sean?
Yes, I would support.
Okay. Mitch, what time did you join the meeting? Mitch, are you there?
You might need to find
Okay. Anyway, we have enough. We'll put it on the agenda. All right, so thank you everyone for coming to the meeting. Daisy and Samantha? Right, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the middle school schedule.
So-
Samantha wanted to add to it too.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about this as well, and I see that Samantha Singleton is here. She's our middle school assistant principal, who also is in charge of scheduling. So after I talk over for a few minutes, I'll have her contribute. But I want to give a report specifically on the scheduling committee, and I specifically called this committee the Middle School Scheduling Exploration Committee, and that is because, you know, when we came together as a group, I was not sure what the outcome was going to be. So certainly my intention was that we would be able to make some important revisions to the schedule if we were able to. And you can see, I provided you with this memo. At the end, we met a number of times, starting in September of 2025, and then ending, our final meeting was in March 2nd specifically, of 2026. And we were unable to successfully come up or identify a model that would allow us to make significant revisions to the schedule. The committee was composed of 13 teachers representing a variety of grade levels and content areas, 2 building administrators, including Samantha Singleton, were were on this committee, and of course, Principal Bass. When we met as a committee, our initial meetings focused on outlining the limitations of the existing schedule, as well as our priorities for a potential new model. We've identified 4 common priorities across all of the members. The first one was to maintain common planning time for the teachers, to enable math and ELA to meet regularly with students. They wanted to meet every day, which I mentioned in my last presentation, to improve the delivery of the MTSS or intervention model, and to deliver instruction in shorter blocks of time. And we talked about that in the last presentation as well. You know, many of our teachers feel that it's difficult to deliver instruction to the middle school learner in 85 to 90 minutes. The committee reviewed a variety of scheduling models, and when I say variety, I think probably upwards of 10. We discussed the pros and cons of each one. Members were careful to consider. I had them look at a number of things. Number 1, student learning and engagement, teacher workload and collaboration, special education and support services, the arts and electives, transportation and cafeteria services, and the school's overall culture and climate. Basically, the implications on all of those items. In addition, the committee researched a comprehensive list of middle school schedule models, not only locally but nationally. But locally here we looked at Montville. We looked at, I can't even tell you the number of different models that we looked at, starting with local models and then expanding to ones in the state that were approximately the same size in terms of number of students. And then again, just kind of national models that we came across. And then teachers went out on their own and kind of created their own model, saying, okay, we like these aspects of this school and these aspects of this school, and can we kind of combine them to make even like this super schedule that we like. And for each schedule that was put forward, we encountered, unfortunately, one of 2 barriers. A barrier related to staffing, either that we don't have sufficient staff, or a barrier related to the size of the school. And so, specifically facility. And then consequently, as a result, when we came to after our March meeting, we realized what we were coming up to a deadline. And that specifically is, once it gets to that period of year, the students have selected their courses for next year. Sam, as our middle school scheduler, has to begin the process of actually creating the schedule for the following year. I think we got really close this year to identifying a model that may work, but we weren't at the point where we were able to move forward with, of course, bringing a model forward to the staff, sharing that with families, making any adjustments that we needed to make for, cafeteria or transportation. There's a lot of things, of course, that have to, and of course, bringing it all forward to you here at the board. There were a number of additional steps that had to move forward that we didn't feel that we could make before the end of the school year, and then also allow Sam to actually schedule the building on time for next year. And so in terms of moving forward, what we feel like we need to do is, of course, let the staff know, where we are, and I believe that Principal Bass and Ms. Singleton have already done that, and then really identify what we want to do moving forward. How can we take the work that we did this year? It was really a lot of work, a lot of, I think, excellent work, and then be ready to move that forward either in the late spring of this year or in the early fall of next year, so that next year when it comes to this time, we can be ready to make the adjustments and hopefully implement a new schedule for the following year. At this point, though, I'm going to call on Samantha Singleton and see if she has anything that either I missed or she wants to add.
Can I ask Ian if there's a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Ian, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick, I'm just curious to know if there's any sort of visual that we could show on the screen that would kind of demonstrate like what kind of options or what schedule blocks would look like.
The only thing we have is attachment 3, the memo that Anne Marie sent to Susan and I on March 3rd.
I don't think you came up with an actual document.
No.
No, I don't have a visual. I mean, we looked at, the reason for that is because we looked at so many schedules, it would be difficult to share with you. I mean, I can give you access to the folder, that the scheduling committee had, that had all of our agendas and the schedule models. Happy to share that with you, but did not put together a presentation. It would be hard to capture all of that work in a slide. Yeah.
That's fair, yeah, actually, a link to check that out offline or on my own time, that'd be
Sure.
great. Thank you.
No problem.
Can you give us an example, like, if you remember what Tyler Middle School schedule was like, and just like a couple examples?
Yeah, so Tyler Middle School, one of the things that I believe that people were interested in or liked about their schedule is they had something called like a CARES block, and that was incorporated into the day. I'm trying to remember the aspect of that. It was almost like a social emotional learning or advisory period. Sam, do you want to help me out? Because again, I can't remember. We looked at so many models, I can't remember the details.
No, it was, so in that particular school, or the school with the CARES block, it was a time for intervention, as well as a time for things like the whole band class to meet. So kids would get pulled in different directions based on their needs, or what groups they were part of, and then other students would stay in their CARES block, almost like a study hall. So when just to give you an example, when we talked about that and that came to the table, the thought was intervention would happen during that time, but the problem is we have far too many students who need intervention. There's no way you could give intervention in that one block of time during the day. And then another aspect, kind of going back to what Anne Marie said, was the idea was maybe to talk about advisory going away, and as the admin team specifically, felt very strongly that that's where we do our social emotional learning. Our second step lessons are done during that time. And so it gives them kind of like that home base. Also, that's where our students eat their breakfast. So that chunk of time every single day we felt like is really important and not something that we wanted to eliminate. I know that since I've started here, this is my third year, we've talked about the size of the building, but that is a huge factor. So a lot of the schedules that we looked at had 3 lunch waves, and there's no way we can fit all of the students in 3 lunch waves. We have to do 4 lunch waves. So then, looking at some of the other schedules, like for example, we like Danbury's schedule. Ian, that might be a good one to look at, because they do a thing where they kind of drop and rotate there's 8 periods a day, but they drop and rotate through the schedule. But then there's only 3 lunch waves, so then we're like, if we add the 4th lunch wave, kids are going to be eating far too early or far too late. So it's just those type of things, kind of hinder our us really thinking about implementing those schedules. And the other thing is kind of going off what Dr. Mancini said is we didn't want to rush this decision. It's not an easy thing to look at a schedule for almost 900 students and then additional teachers, and not everyone has a classroom. Those are all factors, right? So I know it wasn't easy to not maybe come out with something different, but I think a lot of that work was important, and it will kind of guide us into next year. We are on a time frame. Requests have already been completed right prior to break, and I started working on building sections based on requests. And I really need to get the students loaded into the master schedule. So there's just a lot of components that needed to get done now, which does make it difficult. But, I just think we have some obstacles that we can overcome. We just need to find the best way to do it. And none of us were in favor of implementing a schedule that wasn't going to be more beneficial to students. So that I think is really important. And then the other thing that I think is important is one of the last schedules we looked at was teacher made, but it really didn't necessarily benefit the essentials teachers who needed that longer time. For example, the classes were within the 40 to 50-minute range, and speaking with PE teachers, they felt like they wouldn't be able to get the kids in the locker room. Some kids changed, and then, for example, walk up into the field and have enough time to do their activities. Or the STEM teachers felt the same way, getting the labs going, and things like that. So they needed that time. So it's also finding a schedule that's equitable for everybody. So it's a very lengthy, challenging process, but I do think we started a really good piece of the work. And just looking at those schedules, we just need to find something that's going to work for Groton Middle School and, work for our students.
Eastline, are you familiar with Eastline? Do they still have the 3 types of schedules? Like when they first opened their middle school, they had where the kids can have the same teacher or stay together. Or
Yes, they do looping.
Yeah. Do they still do that?
They do.
And with something, because that's like thinking out of the box, because that's not a regular type of middle school. Would something like that work here in Groton?
So some of it comes down to certification. Like some teachers can only teach
Certain grades.
at the 6th grade level. And then they obviously are a smaller school and they have the Kivas.
They have what?
They're called Kivas.
Yeah.
Yep. So their Kivas are all like grouped together, so their kids move within their class, the Kiva, like the square, if you will. And they and I only know this because my nephew goes there. But they only travel outside of their Kiva for their like essentials, so PE and things like that. So sort of like what we have, but they have the space to, like the teachers have their own spaces, basically. But they do looping their, I know at least, I think they do it for 5 to 6 and 7 to 8 as well.
Yeah, I remember years ago when I think we were thinking about going from 3 middle schools to 2 middle schools. We went to Eastline to look at how they set up their middle school, and that's why I remember. Oh yeah, they do something. They have some type of strange program. Not strange, I shouldn't say strange. Different the way they set up their middle school, and it seemed to work for them.
They can all sit in the middle of their Kivas at one time and meet. We're too big for that. Yeah, far too big.
Jen?
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. It's okay to say we're going to put a stop and we're going to move forward because, as you guys know, I like planning. So a well-documented and thought-of plan is better because then the execution is just an execution of a plan that's well thought out and put in place. So if we ran out of time this year so that you have the opportunity to work in this upcoming year to develop that schedule and ready for implementation next year, that is so much better than not having a plan and just or semi-plan and moving forward. So this is fine, this is good, this is very commendable, and it shows like a lot of work, and it makes us think about like things like, hey, if it's a staffing issue, we can, in the budget process, we can ask for staffing. If it's a space issue, maybe we think out of the box and maybe we put people at Fitch if Fitch has room. You know what I mean? So things like that where we can plan so that it will be to the beneficial of our district. So this is fine. I'd rather think about it and rather than just rush and not know what we're, so thank you for the team. So don't feel like the work wasn't,
Smooth transition.
Yeah, smooth transition is what we want. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that was helpful, so we have a Power School, thankfully a Power School kind of liaison. Her name is Doris Kitts, and she's come and worked with us a few times. She worked with me virtually this year, and so I was able to bring a lot of questions to her to know if we could do things within the confines of Power School or, if there were workarounds, because I don't know if anyone works in Power School, but there's like one step could mean you have to do 3 different things in Power School, right? So she's like instrumental for me in trying to build our schedule. And I do think that over the past couple of years, we've been able to improve something each year. And, every year, so this will be my third time doing it. So I took notes specific to, okay, I need to align this better. I need to put more math classes during this block. I need to put more essentials. So, like, just trying to fix those little nuances that maybe didn't happen. And I'm saying 2023 because that was my first year here, and it was not great in terms of the schedule. But with the help of Doris the past couple of years and just learning myself and really trying to fix some of the things that come out each year, I do think we're slowly improving, but I do think there's still room for improvement with the length of time of classes and those pieces that everyone's concerned about being developmentally appropriate for middle school students.
And we appreciate all that hard work, Sam. We know that that's an incredible task. I know firsthand how hard it is.
Adrian, you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to go back and just help understand what specifically, because I know we've talked about like challenges with long class times, and I guess the one thing, the 4 lunch waves, that's something I never realized. Did we plan on 4 lunch waves, or is that just because the size of the cafeteria in the end of the day was too
Size of the
small?
cafeteria and the number of kids we have to fit them.
Yeah, but the plan calls for up to, I think, 1,050 students. So in that plan, did we plan on 3 lunch waves or 4?
I can't remember if there were 3 or 4, but I know that when we started scheduling, we needed 4 in order to put the kids in.
Yeah, which is a lot. I'm sure that some kids are pretty hungry, and some kids aren't hungry at all at the beginning.
Well, that's
because of
true.
because of such a long time of lunch. But how about class, like the space issue as far as classrooms? Is that what we're short on? And is, if we were to say the building's too small,
We
and
opened up closets and spaces in the library, using the library as a classroom. I mean, we had to use every bit of space from the beginning. And I think that continues, Sam. You really have to work so hard. And then to keep, especially our world language teachers, we were there doing a walkthrough today, and Samantha said, and I saw how some were doing the 45 minutes and some were doing the 80-minute classes, and they were switching, and their things couldn't be in that classroom. And I said, how is that going? And Sam said, well, I do have them on the same floor. So, we're trying to get them at least on the same floor so they're not bringing their stuff up and down the elevator. So, but still, you have that in other areas besides world language, right, Sam?
Yeah, so our interventionists unfortunately have to move quite a bit this year because we have a lot of students needing structured literacy, which is pull out for special education. There are certain periods or channels where every single room is utilized, I mean, down to the small breakout rooms on the floors. And those spaces are utilized for 3 to 4 students and a teacher because it's either intervention or the structured literacy, which we have no more than 4 students in each of those. But there have been occasions where we've needed like an additional power up or another class, and I really just can't make it because there's no space to put it in. The other thing, Adrian, is we only have 1 gym, so that does cause some issue in terms of PE classes. We have some PE classes that are very large because we have 3 classes in there at one time. It would be helpful to have a little bit more space. Also, 6th and 7th grade can be together in gym, and 7th and 8th grade, but we never put 6th and 8th grade together. So, it's just all those things that make it difficult when scheduling with the spaces.
Do you still have that
Exercise room.
that exercise room?
That's nice.
We do.
Why don't you get rid of that?
That is for our health and fitness class, or health, strength, and balance class. So we utilize that for that class.
That was nicer than what our football team uses.
It's used every period, not to worry. We have classes in
I
there.
know, but health straightening,
Yeah.
I mean, if you need the room, you need the
Not to
room.
mention our adaptive PE class, we uses it quite often, which is really great. And our movement studio is utilized every period as well.
24/7.
So we are using every space possible.
And that
as we
shadow
are-
box room, what do you call that? That stage?
Black box theater.
You use that?
All the time.
That's used for chorus classes, musical theater, and one of our theater classes as well.
So every period, that space is being utilized.
Yeah, so the black box theater, the movement studio are like highly sought after by the theater, musical theater, chorus teachers. Obviously, those classes need to be in specific areas of the building and need the space, and also, and just as importantly, the storage for the different props and things like that. So I do give our theater teacher, Mrs. Magliaskis, a lot of credit. She moves a lot, and she finds a way to store her materials, but she is, her classes can't be in a regular classroom. They need to be in one of those larger spaces or a music space. So she does move quite a bit as a result of that, because there are so many kids who request to take theater.
Because when Jen and I were there at the middle school, we went to the library, and there were two classes. There was the library, the books in the middle, and two classes on the
On
side.
either end.
And it wasn't really a good situation.
Yeah.
But I guess it is what it is.
For ATL, which is our Approaches to Learning class, which is a 6th grade class, Power Ups, which is our supported study hall, and then always on the other side, farthest from the entry door, is computer literacy. So those classes are taught in there as well. And again, I like you said, I give the teachers a lot of credit, and the students, right? They're able to focus and do what they need to do. But we are careful on what we schedule in there. We would never schedule a special education class in there or a health class even, because some of the topics, you kind of need that more private space to have some of those conversations. So we are careful about that. But again, another limit. And one thing I've learned over the past couple of years, the more limits and restrictions you put on the schedule, you can put in things, again, I don't know if anyone's familiar with schedule building in Power School, but you can put in things called constraints. But the more constraints you put in, the harder it is to load the students and build the schedule. And ultimately, we want to be able to give students as much as possible the things that they are interested in the requests that they have. So we have to decide, and that's why in the beginning of the process, we did the 4 kind of non-negotiables, and the team time was a non-negotiable. That's a constraint. So, and if they also, the teachers really like common planning time in their content areas grade level, so all the ELA at least has a optional prep all together if they want to meet in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Again, that's a constraint. So the more constraints you put on the schedule, the harder it is to build and harder it is to load the students.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, so, it sounds like the building is, as we know, too small. And I think that the schedule may get better and maybe can alleviate some of that, but I think the building is going to continue to be too small until we talk about either reducing the amount of students in the building or making the building bigger. So are we actually, which reducing the amount of students gets to my next question, which Jen kind of touched on. Is there any thought to moving 8th graders to high school, or maybe alleviating the 6th grade class size into the elementary schools, which I know are full, but is there any thought to reducing the amount of students in the school using, and I did a bunch of reading on this, and just say I couldn't find anything good to try to find example districts. There were some example districts that had I think 6 through 12 or 7 through 12 all in one school, but then the high school needs to be divided up, which I don't know if we can do that. But I guess has that been looked into?
There's not a lot of extra room at that high school either. I mean, those classrooms are used pretty much all the time as well. I mean, I could find out from the schedule and look at it closely, but it's not like we could put a whole grade level there.
And I don't know if it's possible to put part of a grade level there if it's reasonable. I mean, maybe there's reasons that's not reasonable, but if we could get some of the 8th grade out to make some space, and in the high school, I mean, the average class size in the high school is a fair amount smaller than the average class size in middle school or elementary school. So,
Well,
I mean,
would say
maybe
it's
there's
been
some
like 19,
fundamental
20.
things that can be done.
I think it's,
Or we can think about going the other way, since we're going to be taking kinder pre-K,
Yeah.
so that's like however many students is going to be in Mary Morrison. Hopefully that alleviates some room. So it's a lot of things to think about. Like, we're not going to decide
They
it.
brought that up another
Yeah.
time about when we open up Mary Morrison, will there be more space in the elementary schools?
Yeah, because
And maybe that's the solution, that we need a long-term plan here. I mean, the schedule is great, so we need to do as much as we possibly can with the facility that we have, but I think the board also needs to have a long-term plan of, like we can't just accept that it's not going to get better, that there's no way to make it better. I mean, we
Yeah.
just,
And so like when I was in Australia, right, like they had split grades. So like let's say like the third graders who were like already performing like or close to the 4th grade, they would be in a 3-4 class. And then you have, let's say, 4th graders who are not quite like there, they would be like in a getting ready to 5, they would be in like a 5-4 class. So it's almost like there's like 1 or 2 sections where it's like a split class where some kids who are performing at the higher level is already going to the next level, and if you're not quite there yet, you're sort of like in the... So I don't know, that was like, that's just really thinking out of the box, like for here, because I don't know if they have that here. Because then, like, if you had like a 5th and 6th grade, right, and like you're a 5th grader, but not quite ready to be in 6th grade, whatever it may be, you stay in like the 5th grade, like elementary school, but you get some aspects of like 6th grade. I don't know if it's going to work here. It was a very small district, like K through 10 was all in the same building, you know what I mean? And then you got shipped off to boarding school. But it's, so it's just like, what do other countries, so it's just a thought. Like, I always had it in the back of my mind where, like, every time they say, like, oh, it's too small, it's sort of like, okay, can we leave some of the 5th graders who are supposed to be moving up to 6th grade in 5th grade, but still do 5, 6, whatever the reasons may be.
just a little history on this. We knew when we were building this school, it was not going to be big enough and we didn't have enough staff. We were working with the Department of Administrative Services, and the commissioner there was saying 100% participation 100% of the time. We're going to fill up this building, every inch of it. And I talked to colleagues who were building middle schools at the same time. Ledyard is one of them. They had the same issue. So it was just that DAS department at that time was putting restrictions on all of us building schools, so that we knew that it was going to be a challenge. And when we first did the scheduling that very first year, if we didn't have COVID and kids were coming in, remember, a couple days a week for the first year, that really was helpful to us to get that school up and going.
But could we have more space if we would have paid for the extra space ourselves?
I got the impression, I wasn't the superintendent there, but I got the impression that it was not allowed, that what we had in place was what we had, and that we had to, and that's all that we, now whether it was an affordability thing,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
That's what I thought. I
Yeah.
heard, that if we needed more space, they will only reimburse you for X amount of space. If you needed anything up, I could be wrong. If you needed anything more, you would have to pay for that yourself.
Well, I know it was a $184 million, project. And it was
Well,
the
that was
largest
for
in
all
the
the
state,
schools.
for all
Yeah,
the schools.
Yeah.
And we came in much under that, you know.
And,
because of
but,
the grants.
and the state reimbursed something like almost 80%, right?
Yeah,
So,
they did.
so it really didn't cost the taxpayers nearly that.
Right.
But I guess I would just kind of, I don't have to keep going on the size, but I think we just need to come up with a plan to deal with the size of the school. So do we know how many students that building can accommodate and be successful?
How many they can accommodate?
Sam,
In the-
how many
like
do
in the
you
real
have right
world?
now?
How many do we have right now?
Students, about 900 something?
It's 8.
I thought
I
896.
I just pulled the number, so give me 1 second. I apologize.
And Adrian, how would you suggest the long-term plan? Could you talk more about that?
Well, I think that we just need to talk about it. If the school is too small, then maybe we need to talk about early childhood, maybe having like preschool through 1 in a separate building, and maybe we need to build, maybe the most effective way to do it would be to build a bigger building for Mary Morrison or something like that. But I don't know, I'm just saying that I think we should plan, because it doesn't seem like the building that we have is sufficient for the long-term solution. I mean, there's probably lots of reasons we built it too small, but it's too small, and we need to actually accept that and try to move forward.
Do we see a decrease in enrollment at the middle school level, Samantha?
No. So, well, right now we're at 880 students. Our 6th grade is the largest. It's 312 students. And for next year, we're currently slated at 304. And I don't think that the numbers that I have include all the students who aren't necessarily in our elementary schools, but planning to come back for middle school. So when I was originally scheduling for this year, I had the idea that we were going to have 326 students. At one point, we were up to 340 something, but just through boats leaving, students moving, students choosing to go to Isaac or another school, or just moving, the number is 312. Last year we had a higher number than we do currently in 7th grade, but again, as we've talked about a lot, we're a transient district, so those numbers can increase and decrease, but our 6th grade tend to stay above that 300. At one point this year we were at 318.
The only place where we see a drop is from 8th to 9th with that transition, because they have so many choices. Yeah.
I like Adrian's suggestion, having a long-term plan, start talking about that,
Yeah.
what we can do.
Yeah, because it could possibly just get worse as we're building more apartments, so there's like more units. And then like if X part of that unit has families with kids, we're going to face an issue.
Yeah. So far, that hasn't happened, though.
No, but it potentially.
Hold tight, Mitch. Mike, what time did you come to the meeting? Mike?
7:23.
Oh, okay. I was close. I put 7:20. All right. Mitch, what time did you join the meeting?
I joined the meeting at 7 p.m. I sent you a text because I had trouble. I was muted and I couldn't figure out how to get unmuted.
Okay. You want to say something, Mitch?
Yeah, relative to the apartments that are going up, I know the people that are moving in those apartments. Very few of those people have kids. Okay, it's a lot of young people that are coming in, and there's 2, 3, 4 people in an apartment. Okay, so I wouldn't count on that increasing the population of the school. It sounds like there was some mistake made when we built the new schools based on the fact that we now don't seem to have enough space. And I do think that we need to take a look at that, but I think you're going to have a lot of trouble getting the taxpayers to sink more money into schools, especially after we were told when the new schools were built that there was going to be a savings. And most people haven't seen any of that. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'd be happy to help work on trying to figure out how to get out of this.
Okay,
But there's not enough space. We all know that.
nice.
I'm done. Thank you.
I think they changed the savings were to cost avoidance.
Well, we went from having, 3 teams at every school to having, 3 teams for both of them. So we lost a whole team of kids,
Well,
of teachers.
If we get a group to look at the long-term plan, I'll put you on that group, Mitch, okay? You and Adrian.
Thank you.
Okay. If Adrian wants to be on
You
it.
just volunteered, Adrian.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because it was your idea.
And,
Go ahead, Ian. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to kind of follow up on that. I definitely would also be interested in looking at being part of the long-term plan group. We're going to have a frank conversation with the community. I don't know I wasn't on the board back when all the decisions were being made with the 2020 plan and all that. Building the new building, if there was an option to absorb, to add more space at our own cost. Maybe that's a frank conversation we should have had back then, but didn't happen. There is we can't have it both ways. I mean, we're building more living space and there's a huge push to expand housing in this town. Whether it's the apartments or the theoretical missing middle housing, all that stuff. Like, the goal seems to be you want people to live here for a long time. You can't guarantee them to be childless for a very long time. If they're younger people, they're going to have children. And, if you want to increase the tax base, well, you have to add value for that. And to that end, it's like schools are a thing that young families look at when they're deciding, like, where they want to raise their kids. So, yeah, we have to have the frank conversation. Whatever happened in the past, we're here now. This is the situation. If we want to improve our capacity as a school district, then we have to look at our space. And, we're running into space issues all over the place, whether it's for extracurricular programs, athletic programs, or academic programs. And if we don't have space, I've never been comfortable with the idea that we have teachers without classrooms. Because part of what they teach you when you're becoming a teacher is how to use your space to help build a baseline to create a educationally enriching environment. And, so it's always caused me great agita to think that we have teachers that are nomadic, moving around with carts and stuff. I commend them for their efforts, but they shouldn't have to work that hard. Teachers should be able to have a space where they can create their perception of an educationally enriching environment. And we need to have a frank conversation with the community about what that's going to cost and what that's going to look like. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments, Jay or Dr. A, Sean, Mike? No?
No.
Okay. Adrian?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch back. Mitch had mentioned savings, and I think that there's been a tremendous savings to the tax base in the last 10 years, or since this plan has been implemented. We've moved from about state average on funding per student to about 10% below state average on funding per student. So depending on which year's numbers you would use, we've decreased our budget by somewhere between $5 and $9 million if we had just kept up with the per pupil spending of the state as a whole. And that being said, also we've increased budget over the last 10 years since the 2020 plan was implemented by about a little under 2% per year. And that is, we all know what inflation is, just consumer inflation, but also inflation with municipalities. I mean, we talk about the town has been a little bit above average, but I think average inflation has been around 35% in the last 10 years that we've done 20%. So And we have a fair amount fewer certified staff in the district. I think it's at least a dozen or 15. I mean, our administration could get that number. So when people say we haven't had savings, we can't just reduce a budget, but we haven't increased the budgets by nearly enough to maintain the services that we've had until the last 2 years. So I think that's just an unfair representation that the school system didn't save the taxpayer any money, because we really did. It's just been in 2% per year over the last 10 years, not all in 1 year. So, thank you.
And we were running 10 elementary schools just prior to my coming, and 2 middle schools, 3 a few years before that. So we've reduced that number to total of 7 schools.
Yeah, so, but our budget in general has moved. It just hasn't been all in 1 year, so it becomes hard for people to see the savings, especially when town taxes keep going up. But there's other reasons besides education that taxes go up as much as they have, but we won't get into that here.
Any other comments or questions or suggestions? No. Okay, well, thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Samantha.
Yeah, but that's all right. I got it. I think. I have to ask Ian
Thank you
just
for your hard work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
what he's looking for.
The next item is, this comes off the referral list. It's discussion in regard to communication with state delegation to allow for interpreters and interpretive technology for SBAC testing. This comes from Ian Thomas, and I think the superintendent has some information.
Well, I wanted to find out, Ian, specifically what you were looking for with regard, we have an entire Tide handbook that we look at when we're talking about things that are supporting our students, whether they're EL students or special education students. Can you be a little more specific in asking your questions so that I can be more specific in giving you an answer?
Sure, yeah. If memory serves, like when we talked about this last year, it came up in conversation that the standardized tests are not offered in alternative languages, right?
So what?
A student cannot take a test. They can't choose to take a test in a different language if it's like a subject-based test as opposed to like an actual English grammar test.
So basically what they have is that students who are duly identified as EL or multilingual learners and or special education or Section 504, they have and need designated language supports. They have specific supports in place. Mostly you see it in math and science, and whether it's a translation glossary or whether it's embedded in the text so that they can figure out the vocab word in the different language, in their own language, and it has multiple languages. I know that Spanish is a real go-to, and you can actually get it, the test in Spanish, but you can also get it in many other languages with this particular glossary feature that they have. They have text-to-speech also in math and science and English and Spanish. So it allows the text to be read to the student, embedded in the technology.
Their own language, in a different language?
Yeah. And then I asked about students who might be deaf, and there's ASL support for students who are deaf and interpretation for text, the test directions more than the actual text itself. And then for children who would be blind, there's magnification, large print, and braille if necessary. So it's really a comprehensive document. I'd be happy to share it with you in some of the areas that I've cut out and printed, and I can even have more conversation with you. I did go to Denise Doolittle prior to tonight just to get, her interpretation, and I've highlighted some of these areas with regard to translation for math and the glossary. And
Is that something you could send to us?
I can send it to you too, and I can put it in a board note, but the actual document is huge, Ian, but I'd be happy to share that document with you, which is all of the specifications around SBAC and the supports that are there for students.
Sure, and how is this presented to students? Like is there a simplified version as far as like a menu of things that are available for their supports?
I can look at that to see if the special ed department, because this would have to go through an IEP process, or with multilingual learners, we really look to our EL or ML teachers at, elementary middle school,
Sure.
and, to support, and for SBAC in the 11th grade. And I would say that the process here, though, is that Anne Marie spearheads, and I did before she did, the test coordinators, and the test coordinators are administrators in the building, and Denise is very instrumental in that, and then they are able then to work with teachers at the building level to make sure teachers are on board of any new changes or any new items in the testing protocols. And then I would say that like the special education teachers and the EL teachers are especially privy to what modifications or what supports are there for their kids, so they can ensure at a PPT that the kids are getting what they need, and that they're informing parents then of what that menu is. I'll see if there's something like a menu. I like that idea.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, like, yeah, maybe talk to Denise and see, I mean, I would like to see, it sounds like with all this variation, all the variations and, how is it the student-facing aspect of this versus the teacher-facing aspect of this? It seems like it'd be great to have like a presentation the way we did with the illustrative math program, have a presentation on what options exist. If all this stuff already exists, then I don't think we need to reach out to the legislation necessarily. It sounds like we have tools in the toolbox. It's just a matter of, how can we present those to the people? Are we presenting them as well as we can? And could we do that with the board as far as walking us through it, so that we know when we get feedback from the community that we can answer or at least point them in the right direction? Or
there's also an alternate assessment. It's more like a checklist for the teacher for some of our significantly disabled students, but the state requires that we only submit 10%. You can't go over that 10%, no matter what your special ed population. So those are the kinds of things that we might want to include legislation on, because it might, from one district to the other, I don't know that you're always going to just have 10%,
so maybe this would be a great thing to kind of develop into a full presentation for another committee of the whole in the future.
I'd be happy to.
And then in that conversation, then we could determine whether or not there are areas that really do need advocacy on the legislative level as well.
Thank you.
According to Dan Ian, the legislator, he says this has to do with the Department of Education.
Well, it's all based in law at some point, right?
I don't know if it's based in law.
Like whoever we got to talk to, maybe that could be part of the agenda, is that we figure out who we got to talk to about what. Because the other thing that's sort of like, to another related referral item, I think also that might be a legislative thing is I know that was a certain certification tests like that for paraprofessionals are only offered in English. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what Lori told us.
Right, and that's something we are working on, Ian. They're working with the testing group to see if that's doable, because I think enough of us have complained that the scores, we're not getting the success that we had with the other test, and we don't know if this test is harder or it's just less accessible, but we are kind of making noise to have them do something about it, because I don't want to lose these really good paraeducators that have been working with our kids in a very successful manner, because they can't pass this test, and
Right, and especially like a lot of the I would imagine there's a certain percentage of the paraprofessionals that are there to help with translation are there because they are bilingual, because they have a native language that is, helps out a portion of the student population.
That's definitely a benefit, I have to say,
Yeah.
for our staff. Yes.
Perhaps
Yep.
if there's more inclusive of those people
Mhm.
as exclusive, so people with that skill set.
What I could do is I could put together a little board note with some of these highlighted topics, just to give you a taste test, and then I'll talk to Denise Doolittle and a few other of the administrators to be able to put together a COW
Sure.
presentation.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Moving on is the referral list. And we took off discussion of the mentor program because we had that in January. And we had it in 2025. I don't know if it was September, October, or some point in 2025.
We do have a mentor dinner coming up.
Yeah,
Make sure I
April
remember.
29th is the
April 29th,
mentor
yeah.
dinner. And the next is discussion regarding the board's interest in drafting a policy regarding family and Board of Ed notification of testing data.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. I've been on and off about whether I think we need a policy on that, but I would still like to have discussion on that because I feel like more communication with families, especially in that elementary level, I'm sure it certainly won't in all instances, but it may increase just family commitment to the district and family understanding. And then separately, like I know we send some testing home, but not all of it. So like iReady, does that even go home, Susan? Do you know?
I'd have to find out, but I would think that they would have discussed it during conference time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate thing. I don't know that conferences is the only way. You know, I feel like it just needs to go home regardless of if a parent comes to a conference or not. And I know that we're fortunate that many parents come to conferences and we have high turnout, but it's not 100% turnout. And it would be a lot for any teacher to get through to talk about iReady scores and DIBELS and just the general report card and how your child's doing in the classroom in general in 15 minutes that we so I appreciate the fact that that's discussed in conferences, but as far as some of the other things, I think it'd be interesting to know how we're assessing kids and how we might be able to just improve communication in general and hopefully parental involvement. Hopefully by increasing this in the early years, it increases parental involvement, which we all know is directly tied to student success.
Absolutely.
So you want to change the wording like to board's interest and interest regarding family and Board of Education notification of testing data? Or do
I mean,
you-
I think we could just leave it because it's been that way for 2 years.
But you said you don't want the policy part.
Well, I think we can just have the discussion and then we can make a decision if the board wants a policy. I mean, I don't know if we need a policy. That's what we wrote then, but I don't see a reason to change the wording on that. We can always just have the discussion, and if the board feels that they need a policy.
I think we
Then-
start with the discussion for sure.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda, the discussion, and we could have had it on this agenda.
Yeah, but it can be and possible policy, or whatever. I mean, it's the way it's written there. And then the other thing I was going to bring up, since I'm talking about this one, is I think we need to add the review of the foreign language. We talked about that a month or two ago. The curriculum committee sent it to the COW to request review of
Who's
foreign
going to
language.
review that, the curriculum committee?
No, we already did in the curriculum committee, and we
Okay.
voted to, and I would have to look back, but it said something like review of foreign language offerings or something like that. But that was in November or December curriculum committee meeting.
We might
So I
need a
think for-
survey again, because French is really dipping across the nation. And
Yeah, I know. Well, I think that would be encompassed in that, I think it would be encompassed in that referral that the curriculum committee made. So,
All right.
yeah, and that survey is 3 years old, or 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years old at this point.
First started.
Because I remember the way it was originally on here was the study from 2 years ago, and that was 2 years ago. So we're at 4 years old now.
All right, so review following language, offerings. You want to add that to the referral list, I take it?
I want to point out that it's not on the referral list.
Do you want to
The
add it to
curriculum committee requested to add it,
Okay.
which I was the chair of at that point. But I think that it should go on here with the date of whatever that.
Okay.
It was.
We could put
I think it was
today's
like
date in
December. I think it was December of 25.
Okay.
And I can get the specific wording of how that was written, but I think it was just review foreign language offerings, more or less.
That sounds nice.
Mike has a memory like a steel trap. Maybe he'd remember better. But
So you said it was just this past December?
Yeah.
yeah,
2025. I think I have your email, so I'll look it up. Anything else on the referral list? Mike, you have anything for the referral list? So, discussion regarding the space or lack of thereof in schools, that's when we're going to have a little committee. We'll have a little committee to study, to have a
I
long-term
didn't
plan.
look for early list there, Bev, sorry. I put a hand up.
Wait 1 second. Long-term plan committee. And I'll get that together. Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Sure, I've been doing a little bit of research. This came up in a curriculum committee meeting when we were discussing some revisions to curriculum that's older, and basically like looking at establishing a policy, or whether or not we want to establish a policy to, I guess, to define the threshold over which like revisions to curriculum would become like have to go through the whole curriculum process versus just little tweaks here and there. Like basically we were talking about the manufacturing program stuff, and it sounds like most of the introduction stuff doesn't need much revision, just a couple of tweaks to modernize some of the language. It doesn't necessarily, it might not raise up to a threshold, but I'd be curious to know how the board feels about like looking at, establishing what percentage of a curriculum would warrant a mandatory like recirculation through the whole curriculum approval process. It's like the ship of Theseus problem, right? You could rebuild the curriculum piece by piece over time. But then become something really new by the end. So I've been doing a little bit of research on this. I could send out an email with some material I found from the Navy that talked about these sorts of an approach to that thinking. But it might be a referral to the policy committee first, but then again maybe not. If we don't even want to talk about it, if we don't think it warrants discussion, if we don't want to take ownership of that.
All right. Could you, since it sounds like a complicated referral, can you send it to me in writing, Ian?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I appreciate that. How are we doing with the dashboard proposal?
I think we've exhausted that, at this point. We've looked at a number of things. We got some things published on the website. It sounds like, there's not a huge sense of urgency coming from the board. And I stand, we'll be more than willing to stand and be corrected by anyone else who's like, But my perception is that everyone's pretty well satisfied with the amount of data that we've been getting out. And that as far as like any try to move towards capturing closer to real time, might just add more onerous expectations to the teachers that are already, working at capacity.
So you're comfortable with taking it off?
Yeah, unless there's an overwhelming desire from the board members. I feel like, we've explored it the best we can.
Okay.
made adjustments the best we can.
Okay. Jen has something. Go
I
ahead.
think that was like important to Jay, but I don't think he's on anymore.
No,
'Cause
Jay
Jay
was.
was really active on that dashboard from the presentation from when the K person came in. So I just want to, before I drop it off, maybe give Jay
Okay,
it.
Jay, okay.
Because I know
Did you
he
talk to
is-
Jay, Adrian?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I didn't get an answer one way or the other if he wanted it to be on there, but what he had mentioned was a little different than what we had talked about, which was more or less the board members having access to a dashboard so we could see a little bit more updated. I think that's what Nick Caruso from CABE had brought up, not necessarily for the Groton Public Schools website, but so that the board could have some access to what's going on a little bit more real time, rather than having to wait, till 6 months after the SBAC testing's done to get stuff.
So we don't even get the information until it's been, published. We get it a little advanced to you, but we do have, moratoriums on it to go public, so.
Oh, yeah, and
But-
Yeah, we
and
talked
if we
about
can-
that now.
yeah, that we're on a separate
Okay,
thing now.
okay.
Yeah.
But, I
So-
mean, if it's
Let's
something
go back
where
there.
board members need to be able to have more leverage with the state's website, I know you've gotten really savvy
Yeah.
on it now.
This
it's not
isn't
that-
the state's, we talked about the state's website, and I think it's, I even emailed the state because sometimes I'm doubtful of what I hear. And they said that
No.
even the board, board members aren't allowed to have the data before it's public. So that's fair. But we're talking about more, I think he was talking about more stuff, like iReady testing data, if that can be put up for just board access to be able to see kind of how are we doing, or, do we need to add supports or things like that? And I mean, I know that you're looking at, do we
I
need to
think
add
one of the
supports?
things that helps me and Beverly the most is that either if it's on the tracker or it's on our monthly, it's almost time for that report card to look at that, but if we could put down other data pieces, like we don't have anything necessarily in the interim assessment data pieces that we could share with you, and math specifically, like, with this iReady data. So we could put that in there, so it would just remind us that these periodic times, we could go through math and ELA, so that we could have that discussion around it at a meeting.
Actually, I was going to set up a little ad hoc committee. I didn't talk to Susan about this yet, to look at this and make it more student focused, and try to fix this, because I looked at it the other day and I'm like,
This is pretty
isn't-
old. This is
is
even
not
before me.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, the template?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this template. We
Yeah.
need to really get a little ad hoc committee, like 3 people, 2 meetings, look at it, see what we can add to it, take off for it. It should be more student focused than it is right now.
And I'd be
We
happy
should
to
be
sit
talking
in
about
to tell you
the-
what's available at the
Excuse
time.
me. There's nothing here about strategic plan. We should be looking at our strategic plan all the time. We should be talking about board goals almost every meeting or every other meeting. There's nothing here on this template to even talk about that. So I'm going to ask 3 people to work with Susan and probably Anne Marie, because of the testing part, to sit on a little committee, or 2 people, I don't care, 2 or 3, and just to look at this template and try to revise it, make it better and more student focused, because it's not good at all.
And it might be that some of these,
It needs to be updated.
these might,
Can I?
Go ahead.
Can I go back to the reporting?
Yeah, go
Like,
ahead.
I know when that K person came, it's not necessarily the test scores, right? It's more like tracking the operations. Like if we said that, like, hey, we're going to track absenteeism. And I know we got a recent report saying absenteeism has been improving, but if we just say, like, hey, in the month of September, it was 6%. In November, it was 6.5. In December, it was 5.5. We could see the trend. I think that was more of like, it's like it's like trending of 5 things that we're going to keep track of that will help us lead to being successful to our, our goals. So if, testing is one of them, like one of our pillars. We pull 1 or 2 of those pillar items, and I know Lauren does a great job coming in once, like every 3 months, But if it's just like something she just updates and it's like 5 things we as a board, decide on, and that's what we track, we can see like how we're performing, right? So I think that's what Jay was sort of asking for, like whenever that K person came in. But like he's not here, but that's how I interpreted it. And like to be honest, I would like that.
Well, maybe at the next meeting, we can talk about what are the 5 things we want on this dashboard. And we can come to, like we say, absenteeism 1. And we can come to a group consensus, and then we can have the staff do it. We can have Lauren come, and she can help us
We're already
with that.
doing it anyway, the absenteeism.
Yeah.
They're looking at trends.
Yeah, but you can give it to us.
As a dashboard,
Yeah.
and it's
Like
really
you do
easy, red, yellow, and green.
expulsions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be one, but Adrian, what are you thinking?
I was just trying to explain, because that got changed in my mind, what the dashboard was over time, so I was trying to go back and explain what I think the original intent was.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I've already done that. What do I think going forward? I'll see what the board thinks.
Okay. We'll talk about Ian, you have your hand up? Thank you,
Yeah,
Jim.
no, I was going to say, I volunteered for that ad hoc that you just already said.
Well, you can't be on all these ad hoc, so I'll decide who's going to be on what. Because you said you wanted to be on the other one, too. The long-term planning.
I'll leave it up to you, Chair.
I'll talk to you about it. See which one you really want to be on.
Appreciate it.
Okay? And anything else on the survey? Let me see. Ian, what about your climate survey data, details, and consistent tracker?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a whole other can of worms. I think I'd like to keep it on the list that I don't know if we really have to discuss it, but like one of the things I always thought is getting. I mean, we kind of struggle with the climate survey at times, getting good data, or like I don't know. It's like everything is rendered so much. Sometimes it's hard to get a sense of the pulse, really. And I'm wondering, one of the things I asked way back when was like, can we do our own survey as a board?
Yeah, that's not our job.
It could be.
No, we'd be out of our lane doing that.
That's an opinion of this interpretation.
But I asked other school board members from other districts and other superintendents, and they don't do that. I mean, you could, but I don't think that's our job to do our own survey and put our own survey out. I don't think that's my opinion. No? You don't have to go by me.
Well, and I think that was my intent with putting that referral out there, was to have a discussion as a board about it, to see like what we want to do as a board, where we would want to land.
All right, let me get some legal opinion on that too, because you might want to do it as a board, but legally, we might not. That might not be something that the board should do.
Because from my perspective, like I feel like, even though we technically only have one employee under our direct purview, we are responsible for the whole district's relationship with itself and the community. I mean, that is part of our charge as elected representatives. So, I think there is a legitimate, point of discussion there. And it's debatable as to how we'd want to go as a board. But I'd be curious to hear what Floyd has to say about it.
And what do you mean by consistent tracker?
Well, I remember a couple of climate surveys, we seemed to focus on different things and phrase things differently, and I think one of my frustrations was just having the same categories that we're looking at and over time. And I don't have all the stuff right in front of me, so I can't pull out examples, but I just remember like having different focal points at different times when we went over the climate survey, and I think it'd be better consistent focal points. But again, I think it'd be good to look at something historically, look at climate surveys and the presentations over the past few years and see what are the consistent ones that we seem to want to know more about versus what are we given, and what are the new ones. So I don't know.
Adrian?
I'll just ask Susan on this because I believe this is just related. Did the state, I remember the state was going to have some guidance on the climate survey and the specific questions in the guidance.
They did, and there's a climate committee. It's made of teachers, administrators, I think paraeducators, and they all contribute to looking at what the model is. So it has slightly changed because of some of the recommendations made by the state, but a lot of the nuances and a lot of the topics are very similar. It's just maybe the way that it's asked, the questions.
But most of the, I won't say all of the climate questions, but the large part of the climate questions, are those questions that the state puts out or that we put out based on the state's guidance of the general category?
I think we always use the state model and we tweaked it where we needed to, but I think this last rendition, we took on more of the state's questions and to keep it consistent with the state. So,
I guess as a separate thing, can you just, do we have access just to what the state guidance is?
I could find that out. I'll just ask the chair of the climate committee. Now, some of you may already know better than I do what the questions are if you're a parent and you've taken the parent survey.
I actually didn't fill mine out. I'm hoping my wife did. I'm hoping my wife did, but.
So I probably filled it out, but that was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and it's slightly changed, but you know some of the nuances in it. Does your child have a go-to? What are they? Where
Do
where
they
they
feel
feel safe?
Yeah.
And we try to ask that from the parents' perspective and the teacher's perspective and the kids' perspective, and sometimes they line up and sometimes they are different responses.
Okay. The next one is we talked about the testing, the space, robotics will keep on because that's still going on. The early childhood center, we're pretty ongoing with that. Board approval grants, that's yours, Adrian. And I'll skip that for a second. And the simple student essay survey, that's Max Schulman. But when I think the high school principal is coming in June, and we can have him talk about the student exit survey.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Adrian, for your approval of grants.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that that's important to discuss, just because, in my own opinion, some of these grants are large enough where they affect or shape the vision of the school, and I realize that they're largely the vision of the superintendent or the administration, but because they are, and they also occasionally will come with, FTEs that may, if the district chooses to keep going in that direction, are going to be additional FTEs, and maybe they'll just be changed FTEs or something like that, where we don't add FTEs but we delete them somewhere else. But I think that we should talk about that at some point, about board approving at least some grants and not necessarily all of them, because I know that sometimes we have grants that are at the teacher or individual class level, and maybe the board doesn't need to get involved in that. But
So I
we
just
also
talked to
have large
Shannon about
grants.
briefing you guys on grants because the new DODF construction just came out. So I definitely want to get your input. So anything big like that, I think it would be good to bring to you and share with you what the parameters are. So I just talked to Shannon about that particular one.
She talked about that at finance and facilities, but it's good to bring it to the whole board.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is more about, just kind of a system in general, rather than a case-by-case way of doing it.
Ian?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to express support for Adrian's referral on this.
Okay.
I think there is a place for the board in some fashion consistently to help input on, grants and targeting where they would go as well. Yeah, I think it would be a worthwhile conversation.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it for the referral list. And Ian, don't forget to get me that referral in writing. Okay, send it to me.
Sure.
Okay.
And I'll send it. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you. Mike, Sean, you have anything? Dr. A, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think we should keep our noses out of the grant thing. Other than that, nothing.
Okay.
No, you need your noses in it, but I think that we can certainly share them and have a discussion about what they're all about.
All right, and next meeting, I'd like to talk about board goals too, because, we're not, the community engagement, we have to think of how the board's gonna be more engaged in the community, and what we're gonna do. Because I hear a lot of board members in different districts, they're actually out in the community all the time. They even have, some board members, like we used to have, adopt a school. We might want to think about that again, but we're really going to have to beat that part up. Because that's how you're going to find out a lot of information, not only by a survey, but you probably know a lot because you have a child in the school, so you're meeting parents all the time. But that's how you actually find out, by being out in the community and talking with people in the grocery store and so forth. But I think maybe we should think about that adopted school model again, where each board member has a school, a go-to school. If board members don't want to, I'd be willing to have 2 schools. I don't care. But so we're visible in the schools, not only when our kids are doing something, but when our kids aren't doing something.
But if you want family engagement, I think you need to have a calendar like we're putting together right now for the end of the year to see what are those events that you want to participate in.
Right.
Because if you want to meet families and have family engagement, those are those other activities that, we see a lot of parents at, and I try to get to, and, whether it's the play or the sporting or music or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I can't get to it all, but that's where you meet the families.
Yeah, that's what you meet them. Yeah.
And see the kids.
Right. And I was even thinking about, and you could tell me how you feel about this at a different point, and asking Susan, maybe on Parent Square, we can ask a question, what is one thing you would like the board to accomplish next year? And so how people are always talking about with some board members, let's get feedback from the community. Just ask them one question, what do you want the board, or ask them, you can decide a question.
Yeah.
What do you want us to accomplish next year? And see what the community says. If we could put that on Parent Square, but that's a discussion for another time. And get some.
You might get a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Or the climate survey. Can that go into the climate survey, something
Too
like
late,
that?
right?
Well,
It's
for
too late,
next
it's
year,
already
yeah.
up.
I was
Oh,
going
yeah.
to say, or we take 3 or 4 things that we want and give them a drop down, and then whichever one is ranked 1.
Oh, we could do that.
This way it's not, we're containing it.
Yeah.
But it could be, you could ask, we can talk about that,
Yeah,
a
we'll talk
climate
about
survey for the future, a question or 2. Yeah.
Not for the future. I want to know now,
Yeah,
so
well.
for next year.
Too late now for the
Too
climate
late
survey.
now for the climate survey.
Yeah.
But we can ask that question and maybe even ask that question, and then if some board members, like say 3 board members say, okay, if you can ask the question on Parent Square, or we'll be at the library on March 3rd, I made up this date, and if you want to come and talk to us, we have to think about how to get out there. So, but I'm transgressing, so I don't know. Let's get back. Do I have anything else? That motion to adjourn? It is 8:30. All right.
Next week. Next week.
Just a reminder about the board retreat on Wednesday at 5:30 at Project Oceanology. When you come into the building, there'll be somebody there to direct you to the room. And we're going to have Paul
Ernie is going to have
Kearney.
a platter of
No,
salmon.
I'm talking about who we're going to have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Paul Weigel?
Yeah.
Paul Wego's going to talk about social media and the student's mind, something like that, right?
Yeah.
I was close.
Effects on students.
Yeah, effects on students or children. And then Clint's going to talk about the same thing, but tied with education. Mike Whitney's going to work us through district mission. That's policy 0100. So I have the policy here. If you came in person, I was going to give them to you so you could take a look at it. But please take a look at that policy P0100 before the meeting so we can, Mike's going to review it. And we're going to make changes and figure out what the district mission is, or the district vision and the district mission. And then Sean's going to give us an update on what he sees out in the field, because Sean is well traveled and well connected, so he's going to give us an update on that. So I think it's going to be a good retreat, and we'll probably have another one in August, talking about something else. So be there or be square, like the kids said. That's an old saying, I guess.
Really old.
Can someone send out the address for Project Road just so that we all have it?
It's at Avery Point.
Recording stopped.
Okay.
I'll call you, Sean.
I can have Joyce send it out, and then the